Right, so it's time to start putting this carb back together. Start off by putting the main jet emulsion tube back in. It's got a little flat bit, and that little flat bit has to coincide with a little pin that you see in the side there, which you can just see is poking out in the bottom. But because you've got to put it in from the top, obviously you've got to line up. You can see the pin if you look down through it. You've got to line up the slot with the pin. So you hold it, hold the carb the right way up like this, and holding the emulsion tube like this, drop it down into its slot, push it down with, I'm using the end of a paintbrush, and it should slot right in and go flush. And you put your finger in through the air inlet. Now you've got a little washer, a little brass washer that goes on first. It should fit in there, and then you put your main jet back in. Make sure you use the right screwdrivers for the jets, otherwise you'll damage them. Tighten it up tight, but not too tight, otherwise you'll snap it right off. Now we put the pilot jet back in, the one that was completely blocked. Again, choose a screwdriver that fits it snugly. And that one just goes tight right to the bottom. And pull it tight. Now we want to put the floats back on. I'll put the top part of the carb back on first because the floats are a little bit vulnerable. I'll put the top together first. So take your slider. You've not done anything to this apart from just basically give it a clean. There's nothing wrong with it in the first place. Give it a fiddle to get the, got to line up the main jet with your finger. Get it into the hole. Put the little notch in, which you can see there. Stick the little notch in, and then push the rest of the diaphragm in. Sometimes these diaphragms totally refuse to stay in, and what I've found it's a good idea to do, if that's the case, is put a little smear of grease around the top of the slot that you're putting it into, and that just causes a little bit of surface tension and holds the diaphragm in place while you're putting it in. Next thing is your spring. Doesn't matter which way up it goes, but put your spring in, and then you're putting your cap back on, and you should be able to see on the back of the cap, you should be able to see which way round it goes by, you'll notice that there'll be a little mark where the cutaway has been. Here it is. Right, and obviously I marked it. I put 2 marks on there, 1 mark on there, so that all lines up, so that confirms that. So then that went there. Screw all 4 of those back in. As I said before, the symptoms of this carburetor, the faults that this bike had were nothing to do with the float or the float height or anything like that, so I'll leave all that alone. Stick your float needle, hook your float needle back into that little tag on the brass floats, and then drop it snugly into there. Now you want to replace the pin. The pin should go back in the way it came out, which way round. There we go. See, it's operating as it's supposed to. So that's everything back into that part there. As I said before, this carb was quite clean anyway, so I haven't really needed to do much to the float bowl and that to clean it. Just squirted it out with some power clean. Okay, go back on. Do that just so you can hear that the float is lifting and closing as it should. And we've got that's the choke diaphragm. Put the choke diaphragm back in, again lining him up with that little notch that you can see. Then the spring, and then the cover. Right, and that should be the end of that misfire. Now we'll put the carb back on. Putting the carb back on is pretty much a reversal of the removal procedure. Make sure you've got the cables as out of the way as possible, but still in their original routes, because otherwise things just won't fit if you've got the cable routing wrong. So what you're going to have to do now, is put the carb back into its position. Before you put the carb back in situ, put the cables back on. So you're going to start off with the throttle cable. Have the carb, just plop the carb in like that so that it's near enough to be able to do it. Long nose pliers, grab hold of the cable, and twist the cable to the angle it needs to be at to get it back into its run. Back in its run. Then you've got the joiner cable, the cable that balances tickover. Put that one back in. The procedure with the choke is to pull the choke on full, lock it, so that the spring is actually under tension on the end of the cable, and it holds that will hold the cable nipple into this little brass piston that goes into the choke. So with the carb in this position, you slotted it back in. Line the choke up. Put the brass piston back in the hole where it came out, and then with your fingers around the frame, in the same way as you undid it, screw the little plastic nut, little plastic bolt back into the body of the carburetor. Now it's really, really critical that you get the carburetor and the choke lined up properly, because if you try to force that little plastic, no bolt, back into the hole and it catches on the thread, it will chew up the thread and you'll have to have the carb and it apart to fix it. So it has to go in, obviously because it's plastic, it isn't going to be difficult to put in, but it does have to be perfectly lined up. And do not force it at all. If you start to feel the resistance, fiddle about with it, try and line it up a little bit better, try again. But that will screw in tight. You can just do it finger tight, or you can put a pair of long nose pliers on it, tighten it up a little bit more. It's very difficult to get to. It's sufficient to just make sure it's tight with your fingers. So that's all the cables and the choke back in position. So now all you've got to do, is get the carb back onto the carb rubber. Well, it's almost in position now. Just has to be angled a little, making sure you don't crush this cable, which unfortunately goes over the top of the bar there. Force a float chamber, and then you basically push it, and what you've got to do is push it onto the inlet manifold and push it down at the back almost simultaneously, and you'll feel it suddenly sort of, there's loads of resistance. It's quite a job, you've got to wiggle it, jiggle it, and then eventually you'll feel it sort of plop down in, and it will be half into the inlet manifold. And then you've just got to keep wiggling and jiggling it until it's all the way onto the inlet manifold. So we'll tighten that up, route all these cables, reconnect all the pipes, the brake pipes and the petrol pipes, etc. And then we're on to the next job. Getting this rubber on is quite a fiddle. What I tend to do is put it on without either of the clips, with either of the retaining clips on, because it's near on impossible to get it on once you've got the retaining clips on the rubber. So to get the rubber on, I just used an Allen key, and I just basically hooked an Allen key in under it at the back and pulled it out around like you would if you were trying to fit a tyre to a wheel. So what we're going to do now is bend that clip out like that, and then we can pass it. You can do this with the big one as well, but slightly more straightforward way to fit these brackets is to take the screw out completely, bend the bracket out, and then roll it around. There's a bit of space underneath it. You basically roll it around, it's a bit of a tight fit, but roll it around like that. Put it into position, like so. Put the screw back in. I've made a bracket for the back one as we didn't have one. Rather than use a zip tie, which is how it's been done before. So this is going to be a bit of trial and error, because I've just made this clip, it may not fit. I'll put it in that way round. Again, open it up. Push it through the gap. There is a little bit of a gap at the back there. It's going to be a bit touch and go, because I may have made the bit too loose or too tight. I made it from memory. I didn't actually do it to the rubber because I'd already fitted the rubber. Just turn that in until it catches. It's always such a fiddle because there's so much crap in the way with these bikes. Right, that seems to have gone into position, and it's all still on, so now let's just see if it'll tighten up. Looks a bit loose. bang on. Yeah, nice and tight. There we go, we've got proper clip on the bottom of it now, as intended. On still. Okay, so we've got the carb on, we've put the basically put the coils back on, which is straightforward enough to do. Now we're going to put the throttle cable back together. So that's just to show you how that's done. It's not too bad, it's fairly straightforward. You've basically got this little plastic thing here that holds the two cables. Put the two cables back into the plastic bit here. Sometimes this will disappear up there. What you have to do is pull it out and put the thin screwdriver back in to push it back out, but we've been lucky this time. It stayed on the end of the cable. It can't go anywhere now, even though it's not theoretically in the end of it yet. And what I'll do now is put the throttle back together at the top. That will then pull the cable tight and put everything back into place. There we go. Put a pipe to the fuel pump, and I've just put the end of the pipe in the tank. I'm just going to run it up and make sure that it is all good and functioning before I put it back together. I might not have to balance the carbs. If I do, I will make a video. Okay, let's fire her up and see how she goes. Job done. Teeny weeny confession. When I started it up after I refitted the rear carb, it was still backfiring. I took the front carb off. The rear cylinder was running lovely then, but when I took the front carb off, I found the pilot jet on the front carb was blocked as well. So this trike did actually need both of them doing. But it's not so common with the front one. This one was only just blocked, but it was blocked. I didn't bother doing a video showing the front carburetor and what we did to it, because I've already done one that shows the dismantling of the front carb and the cleaning, so there you have it. This is how it actually sounded after we refitted the rear carb.